Hi class, welcome back. So today we are going to be doing printing of our 5x7 linoleum block that is for your Libris book plate project. Sorry this is coming to you a little bit later than I had hoped. I tell you guys to not design where it's a long carving process, and here I did the same thing. So finally I got my block carved. This is the jig that I showed in a different tutorial, so you'll be wanting to make this, and then your block fits in just like this. So today we're going to do the whole process of printing. So I'm going to show you from start to finish how to do that. So you will need your jig and your block, but the other things that you will need with you is the Japanese paper that I've provided that was pre-cut. That is to 6x8, so that the jig actually has a 1/2 inch border marked all the way around it. You'll also need some artist tape. You'll have your ink, your black relief ink that you bought in your kit, hopefully. You'll also need a brayer as well. You will need some sort of coated paper for the top surface. I'm just using copy paper right now, which should be okay, or newsprint, but in an ideal situation you want coated paper just for the top when you're burnishing. You can also use a wood spoon for this. We've talked about that. Any wood spoon in the kitchen will work. You can always also use a glass bottle. I do also have a glass baron, which I'll show you as we get into printing. And then you'll need some sort of surface, acrylic sheet or something to actually put your ink on. So those are kind of the main tools that you will need for this project. So we will just get started so I can show you step by step how to print. And remember, when you're doing this, also you'll need some newsprint. You're going to want to build up with newsprint first before you go to your good paper. Okay, let's get started. So to start, you're going to want to put some ink out onto a plexiglass sheet or some sort of surface. Doesn't really matter what you use. You could even use a piece of acetate, really. And then I'm just got this little palette knife. I'm just going to kind of spread it so it's nice and even there. And then with a brayer, you're going to want to roll out a nice amount of ink. I'm going to get a nice little bed of ink charged. You can have a little bit of a hiss and orange peel with it, but not too much. Just a kind of a nice even distribution of ink, but quite a bit, okay? And so once it's rolled out evenly, picking up your brayer every now and then just to make sure that the ink is all over the surface. You always want to set your brayer up right like this so that it doesn't end up if you lay it down flat, it could start to dent the brayer a little bit and cause damage. So then I have my block right here with the jig. I'm going to take it out of the jig to start. And actually, I'm just going to put a piece of newsprint under my block so that I don't get ink all over my surface. And I'm going to start to roll out my block. Now this is the first time I'm actually going in and inking it up, and this is mainly my line work. This is for a multiple block that I'm doing, but you for this project are just doing one layer, so that's good. But you'll see some of what I have here that's picking up ink in these kind of negative areas. One thing you can do for that is you could actually either cover them up with some artist tape before you go into print so that they don't pick up on your print when you get into your good prints, or you could paint the block with a acrylic gel medium, and then that makes it easy to wipe with Q-tips. So you can do a little bit of that kind of preparation during the process of printing. I'm going ahead and inking up the block and several times here. You know, it's hard to know at first how many times to charge it, but maybe like 3 or 4 passes. But it's going to build up over time and get darker and darker for you as you print. So your first few prints need to be on newsprint before you get into your good paper. And I'm just going to put this to the side. I've got my jig right here set up. Okay, and I'm going to place it right inside like that. And I've cut some sheets of newsprint to size as well. I'm going to lay that into my crop marks, just like that. One thing you can do too is with a little piece of artist tape, you can hinge the top. It's really good practice to do this if you're going to be doing multiple layers, especially because it can move on you. And what I'm going to do is, so I don't hurt the paper so much, I'm going to lay this on top, and I'm going to start to burnish the top surface with this wood spoon. And I can actually pull this up. Because it's hinged, I can see what's happening and go back. Now, I didn't actually cover any of the little negative ink marks on my plate yet. I'm just going to let that transfer so you can see what's happening. Moving it around. Okay, and then this artist tape is not really such artist tape. It's actually from Home Depot, so it's a little stickier, but artist tape won't stick as much. Okay, and so here's what I start with. This is my first proof. It's good to see here in the newsprint exactly how it's transferring over, and it's doing it fairly well our first go around, which is nice. Newsprint will give you a really great transfer right onto the surface because it's not printmaking paper that soaks through. It really sits on the surface and gives a nice read. I can see here, these are those chatter marks that are in my negative space I was telling you about. You can cover those up with artist tape before you go further with your printing, or you can do what I said again, like just cover those areas with gel medium and use Q-tips. It'll just make it easier to wipe off. But this is also a nice way to start seeing what's happening with your block and any areas that you want to carve further. So you do want to run some proofs in between just to kind of see what's happening. And then afterwards, once you feel really solid on the final piece, you do the full transfer. So I'm going to go ahead and ink it up one more time, and I'm going to run it, I'm going to cover up these areas and run it on some good paper so you can see how that looks transferred. As you go through and you build this up, you will definitely see more and more ink just accumulating on the surface lines without you having to charge it as many times. So it will get easier and easier. And depending upon how fine your lines are, you obviously don't want to fill in certain areas. So making sure to not over ink is important as well. One more this way. So we can see from this first one, I'll just say this is kind of my first one done with the Japanese paper, but when I blocked out all of those little areas, I forgot that one in the sun, but I blocked all these areas out. No longer were they transferring from the block. So that definitely is one way to go about doing it. and that will help as well. But I can also see that from the newsprint to this one, this is actually a lighter transfer. So I only did one newsprint to start to build up to doing my Japanese paper. So I would say maybe 2 to 3 runs on newsprint before you get into your final prints on your good paper. You should start getting a lot more contrast on the surface of your print, and overall just very even printing. Then make sure to note how many times you're passing ink along the block and try and repeat that as you go through the process of printing so that you get as close to an exact addition as possible. So that's it for the printing so far today. Good luck with your project, and we will see you soon.